Hey, how you all doing out there? My name is Vince Faney. I am the creator and host of the show Insanity Unplugged, and I'm beginning a new podcast soon. Right now I'm experimenting, and so in the future I'll be having people that I'll be talking to. I really don't prefer to be just doing the mano a mano and just going off as from me to you. Mainly I like interaction with other people, but I'm experimenting with the software now. And so I'm trying to get out some context and basically also get some experience just talking. Right now, as you can see, I'm a little clumsy and a little nervous. But anyways, been dealing with issues about values and why we should have friends with values, why it's important. And if you don't choose people around you that share the same values, it's going to hold you back. And I also want to talk about a lesson that life, the universe, is neutral. It doesn't care about us either way. The universe is not loving. It doesn't hate us. It's not out to get us. It's just random. There's chaos. It's neutral. And also, basically, it's unforgiving. It can be unforgiving. If we don't do what we need to do in the time that we have offered to us, and we wait later in life, we're going to pay for it. If you wait too late to try and go for things, you may never go for it because your health may diminish before you attain something. Any number of things could happen. The sooner you figure out what you want in life, what your goals are, what your values are, your ethics, and the sooner that you can basically size people up and say, these people are like me, they have the same values, the same ethics, they're ethical, they can be relied upon, I want to prove that I can be relied upon and so forth, it's going to make things in life easier. You got a lot of people who are pretty sad that life is tough, and it's always been that way. It's always been tough. Prior to capitalism, during capitalism, if capitalism was to fail, it'd be still tough. That's just how life is, okay? People are concerned that they're working at Walmart and other jobs, that there's no way for them to get ahead. And, there is ways for people to get ahead. You just got to make tough choices. There's some people who have talked about this on the internet that basically there are certain things you should try to avoid doing. For instance, you should avoid quitting school. You should get your high school degree, get as much education as you can without spending the money that colleges are trying to force you to pay. There's all sorts of things that you can do. Try not to get married and have kids before you're financially set. Use, if you have to, birth control. My sister, she didn't get married till she was 32. And it was with her college sweetheart who she met, right after high school. And, they were sexing it up all those years, but they, through birth control, managed not to have kids until 2 years after she got married, till she was 34. So things, there's things you could do to prevent accidents. Anyways, so basically I talk about it in this post, I call it the tale of two brothers. And, years ago when I was in high school, I would, you hang out with people, you get to know them, and they're nice. Sometimes you don't pick friends based on their actual values and ethics. You pick friends because you have the same interests, you're in the same proximity. So the one brother, it turns out, he's a can-do person, hard-working person. He's the older of the brothers, and he's accountable for his actions, and he's smart. Both brothers are smart. The other brother, very smart, sensitive guy. But both the brothers were uniquely different. They had their own individual talents. Now, the one brother lamented that he felt I was more of a friend to the younger brother, that I was fonder of him. That's simply not true. And the reason is that the younger brother walked around perpetually with the broken wing. People with broken wing always draw compassion. You get concerned. You want to protect them. You want to basically, if they have issues or they're insecure, you want to kind of give them the type of confidence that they can achieve things in life, and that we're all insecure and we're there to help each other. Basically, we try to help people who we think are self-destructive. Now, this guy, he was intelligent, he was sensitive, but he was really got into drugs, and he liked to basically put out the belief that he was so intelligent, so sensitive that he felt the kind of hurt, inwardly towards himself and other people that people of less intelligence and sensitivity simply could not understand. So he got into all sorts of drugs, right? So, I mean, he just loved pot, and he loved all the hallucinogens. He got into LSD and mescaline and so forth and so on, right? And then it seemed like there was no drug he wouldn't do, and he would, you know, and I'm talking excessively and often. You know, cocaine, barbiturates, all sorts of things. He was into High Times magazine, always ordering these concoctions and so forth. You know, we lived together for a while. He wasn't paying rent, but he seemed to always have money and time to do bongathons and make up these concoctions and mushrooms and everything else. Anyways, you know, here's the thing. There are people who are using drugs. That was his value. He didn't have really any goals. Basically, when you're at a high school age, kids kind of hang out all the time and they're talking about, you know, their wishes, you know, their aspirations. But one thing I learned over the years, if you really value something, you're going to go for it, right? So, you know, a lot of people just have wishes, you know. They want to be an astronaut, or wouldn't it be great if we did this and that, you know. One time somebody said to Stephen King, I wish I was a writer. And Stephen King knew that this guy was just talking, blowing smoke. Stephen King said, yeah, I wish I was an astronaut, right? Because that's how serious this guy was about writing, you know. Anyways, this friend of mine, the younger brother, was always taking drugs. I mean, when he was high, he'd be walking out in the traffic, and you'd have to, like, you know, a couple times I saved his life by tackling him and getting him out of the traffic and so forth. Other times, you know, he was just, you know, I thought he was going to commit suicide. He's choking on his vomit. He's basically overdosed a couple times. All sorts of stuff. You know, so I was always concerned about him. So I was always around him, and I felt like he just needed that sympathetic ear, and I felt like that he just needed someone to cheer him on and say, look, you know, buddy, we're all messed up. We're all half flipping nuts, but, you know, we don't need to look at the negative and think everything's so bleak. We could achieve things. Now, I didn't articulate it quite this well, but that's always been the core of how I operate. You know, I suppose I got that from my mother. Don't know. Anyways, so, you know, a lot of people would say, now, come on, Vince, he's a victim. Obviously, he's self-medicating. Obviously, he just, you know, you just be patient. Well, you know, I was patient, you know. I mean, I put up with this guy for, till I was 50, all right? So, now, not to say that he was that much of a problem child in that way till I was 50. He got out of drugs in his 30s. In his 30s, he was living at home with his mom because he couldn't hold down a regular job for that much. And he was always just screwing off, you know. Very intelligent guy, very well read, but he just couldn't quite get it together. And really, when I look back, he had trouble dealing with his anxiety. Now, you know, life throws all sorts of anxiety-provoking things at us. We have to be accountable for our successes. If we want to be successful, we got to be accountable for what we do. Got to be accountable for our failures. Accountable for when we do things wrong. Accountable for when we get knocked down from somebody else and say, well, maybe I had a part to play in this. We got to be accountable and pride and feel requisite, you know, appropriate pride when we've done something successful without tooting our own horn or developing hubris. We need to basically deal with the insecurities that we have and the anxieties that we have. Everybody has to do this, and we got to learn to do it without drugs or anything else that's an unhealthy crutch, or without having enabling friends and so forth, which I was. I didn't realize I was an enabler. So basically, you know, some people say, well, you just people like that need somebody. Well, the fact is, oftentimes when you're around people like that and you put up with that kind of behavior, you end up being an enabler. You don't mean to be, but it's an enabling. So if he was a true victim and really couldn't help what he was doing, and this is what I think of true victims, true people who can't help it because of their genetics or their epigenetics or whatever, really, they're going to pretty much stay that way their entire life. But the fact of the matter is that he did clean up his act as far as quit taking drugs. For whatever reason, something snapped in his mind, and he decided he was tired of living in the basement of his mom's house, and he decided that he was going to go out into the world and do things. So he did something that was kind of bold. He joined the armed forces, right, in his 30s, getting close to when it was like basically the cutoff point. So he goes to boot camp. Obviously, you got to quit drugs when you go in the armed forces, and then the boot camp's kind of a detox of the mind and so forth. They break it down. They help you rebuild. They make you motivated. They allow boot camp does allow a person to really people to realize they can do things they never once thought was possible, which gives them confidence. So these out in the world, these He's over in Europe, stationed in Europe, and he's doing things, he's living things, and experiencing the things I did when I was 18. So he comes out, he's got new eyes on the world. Now, you know, the only issue he might have is that he drinks. Now, he's not an alcoholic, but he drinks to calm himself, I suppose. He quit all the drugs. Great. But now he's faced with, I got to go out in the world and do something. I got to make a living. So because he has this fascination of philosophy, as do I, which was one of our common shared likes, pleasures. See, I thought we had the same values. And the reason why I thought, many people think they have the same values of other people, is they don't have the same values. They have the same, they enjoy the same things or dislike the same things. Like, you know, they may like the same books or the same movies or the same type of girls or whatever. Or they may hate, they both may hate a certain type of beer. That's not the same values. That's superficial. That's not an indication that you could depend on each other whatsoever. So, anyways, he goes out in the world and he comes back and he decides he wants to get a degree, luckily from the GI Bill, and because one of his relatives was a university professor, he gets, at a specific university, gets free tuition and so forth, and that's a huge help, right? So, anyways, and the GI Bill's picking up some other expenses. So he gets a degree in philosophy. Now, I love philosophy, but I would never get a degree in it because I think it's a waste of time as far as for looking for employment. I just study philosophy from the library or now on the internet. So then he had to get a teaching. He decided, I'll be a teacher, and he's a good teacher. I'll give him that. He's actually talented as a teacher. And so, but unfortunately, he never learned math, and so he can't teach the sciences or physics or anything that deals with any kind of math. So he's relegated to teaching English lit, English grammar, and history. And so it makes his value in the market a lot less. He's going to get less jobs. A person who has a science degree can pretty much, and a degree in mathematics, can pretty much teach anything. He can teach the English, the grammar, this and that, and so forth. Anyways, he got a late start in life, getting a career, right? All this time, over the years, when we used to work together, he used to make fun of me for working 80 hours a week. He basically thought that people shouldn't work more than 20 hours a week so they could read the good books, listen to music, develop spiritually, and have that. And that's, you know, because as he said, we could each die the next day or within a week. I understand that philosophy. But life's a gamble. And, you know, the actuary tables say most of us will make it to our 70s. So that said, I didn't want to squander my life just spending all my time reading the good books. And so I took a gamble and decided I'll work a lot and try to figure out to save my money. Because my values was, why do I want money? Why do I want wealth? Why do I want to do what I want to do? I also want to evolve. I want to improve and augment myself mentally and physically, emotionally, spiritually. But, you know, to do a lot of that requires money, so you can have the time to do it and also have the money to help your friends and family. So if you're going to get married, it's nice to have those fiscal resources. That's my value. And when you value something, you're going to move heaven and earth to do it. If you don't value it, what's the point? Why would you put out the effort? You won't put out the effort for something you don't value. Even, you know, it's like Stephen King saying to that guy, yeah, I want to be an astronaut. Stephen King's never going to try to be an astronaut because he doesn't value that. So anyways, you know, a time came over the years where the guy's pretty ticked off because he's not getting the teaching jobs. He's never got a permanent teaching job. It's substituting, moving from one crappy school to the next and so forth. And he's ticked off at me and he's ticked off at the world because he's so frustrated that people, how is it that people so obviously less intelligent and educated than himself is successful, that they would have money. And he felt that people who put a premium on money were greedy and superficial, and that they just could never understand such a sensitive intellectual soul as him, and he resented them. He made a statement, Mitt Romney pays less taxes than me, which is BS. He pays maybe a lower percentage in a corporation, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, what it came down to is he made mention, let it out, that he didn't think I needed to have the type of wealth that I wanted. Because I was investing in real estate, I had a mail order business on the side, I was working 100 and some hours a week. So on one hand, he didn't think I needed the money that I wanted and the success that I moderate success that I was having, and kept on and on trying to say it's greedy. And I tried to tell him, I said, you don't understand how expensive it is. I myself don't need that much money. I don't. My interest and so forth in life are free or cheap, okay? But if I'm going to have a family, it's going to require more money. And if my sphere of influence of people that I love is broader, like I have a whole array and circle of friends and family, then all of a sudden my concerns about being there is greater. So I need even more money. If I'm a socialist in that way, I want to have the money to distribute my income to other people, to help them become more fiscally independent, or to help them if they have hospital bills, or to help them if they need to go to school, which I've done in the past. And a lot of other people I know who value the same things I have, that have made money, do the same thing, quite frankly. People like to think that all people who seek money are greedy and selfish and they don't want to do that. It's the very thing that motivates most people for making money. So, I was basically saying, hey, if I have 3 kids, I got to worry about their college fund. I got to worry about disability insurance, just in case one or all of us gets disabled. If you have a kid or a wife, or I get disabled, I'm going to need something to help replace the income I've lost. I'm going to need physical therapy. I need health insurance. I need dental insurance. I need like a long-term care insurance. There's all sorts of insurance that we need. But if you got other friends that are in trouble, you need resources to them. So all of a sudden, all this stuff comes down to needing more resources, right? It's not about saying I need this because I don't want people to grow or to work or to aspire. It's like I want this for my friends and family. So if they lose their job and they need a place to stay for free and so forth, they could do it. They could live here. I could feed them. And I believe that the friends that share my values aren't going to take advantage of that, and they're going to get on their feet, and then they'll pay it forward with their friends and family or whatever. And the fact is, he was lamenting so many things about not having the money, getting a late start, and that he wasn't going to be able to retire till he's 80. And I said, well, you can work with me, and I made this offer to many people I used to work with. I got a property, and you could start doing this, and this, and then we can make a side deal legal. So if I was to die, you could get this, and this, and you would have a share, and all of a sudden you would build up the share because you don't have a credit rating right now. No bank's going to let you on, and so forth. So we can achieve this together. I'll help you because I love you, and I know you'll do this for other people. And in my mind, the more powerful my circle of friends and family are, the better we are as a team to go out in the community and build a better world. Because quite frankly, without that kind of philosophy, the world's going into the toilet, quite frankly. So that was my selfish reason for wanting to help him and some others, is basically I wanted all my friends and family to be as fiscally secure and powerful as possible, so we can make do the real task, the real valuable thing of going out and hopefully making the world a better place. Otherwise, why have money, really? So he still thought, blah, 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 this and that. So basically what he was trying to do is marginalize what I've accomplished and actually demonize me for squandering, or for, how would he say, hoarding the wealth that other people could have, which is BS. Unless you're taking up land for geological resources or whatever. Money and jobs are created, and it's not like the way my type of wealth was not that I was a millionaire, but my type of wealth was not hoarding onto mineral rights or the water rights, and like some companies are trying to hoard the water rights and have people pay for the right to drink water. Now that's a different story, and I'm against that. So the bottom line is, he was just basically resentful at life. He wasn't being accountable for his own actions. He was suffering from obvious, incredibly ugly jealousy, and so forth. And it was then that it occurred to me that we didn't share the same values, and he didn't want to put out the effort to attain any of these things. Not only he didn't value trying to be as fiscally his concern was not me or anybody else, because I've been homeless before, and these, people see me hurting and down and out, but they never thought, I need to be in a better situation so I can care for my friends. That's the furthest from their mind. They want to spend their time reading books, watching TV, and drinking and partying and so forth, and just say, oh, I care about you guys. So it occurred to me that if the situation was reversed, I wouldn't even be an afterthought, which is, well, it's not his place for me to be in his thoughts all the time. But the fact is, he hates hypocrisy. He had trouble eradicating his own hypocrisy. So it was one of those things that he just didn't want to be accountable. And it wasn't like he wanted to have what I have, if it meant that he would have to go through what I went through, which was like lots of frugality for years and working hundreds of hours per week and so forth and so on. But he didn't want me to have it. He wanted all of us to be miserable at the same time. It's like the time when he was taking drugs. All these times he was taking drugs, it was something easy. He would take the drugs because it was a pill. It was this, it was that. He'd smoke it. So he didn't have to work on himself spiritually. So his whole thing, and why he was taking these drugs, he's trying to get people to take drugs with him, trying to encourage me to take drugs, because and he was trying to trigger me and entice me with the things I found that was valuable, which means improved cognitive physical performance, improved or greater access to spiritual realms where I could become more spiritual. And I didn't get talked into it because, one, I've always distrusted the road that's too easy. I distrusted getting things if there was no effort to work for it. Now I think, not everything needs to be as the hardest thing to get what's valuable, but you got to be suspicious. When something seems too good to be true, it generally is. And in addition, I saw that the way he would function, or lack of function, was enough to keep me from going on, even experimenting with drugs. Once I got out of high school, I said, that's not for me. Okay? So, and here's what's also horrific. It wasn't until years later that he told me about the horrible, I think he forgot about how he's trying to encourage me to take drugs with him, because he's talking to me about the horrible physical, mental, emotional side effects he suffered. And some of those effects, bad effects from long-term drug use, even when he quit, still plagued him, even to this day. So much for valuing my health and so forth. But anyways, when you get out into the world, you have to basically, you got to give it some thought. You got to basically say, what are my goals? What are my values? I need to hang out with other people who value the same thing. And obviously, if you value the same thing, you're going to have affection for each other. And if you value the same thing, you're going to realize, oftentimes, not always, especially if you have the same goals, that you can be an asset to each other and help augment and speed up the amount of time it would take you to achieve a better life, success, whether in any endeavor, whether it's fiscal success or physical improvement, mental improvement, whatever, education. You could augment it with friends. You could speed up your process. We could help each other speed up the process of which you could achieve things. And my gosh, what better more valuable thing is that? So, and even if you friends who value and love each other, for instance, you don't even have to have the same goal. I may want a goal of being a social activist, and I got a friend, like for instance, I got a friend who doesn't believe in some of the things I want to do for the community. I mean, he believes I want to help the community. He's one of those guys who's a capitalist who says, I think what you're doing is immoral. I don't want you to go out. I mean, I just think it's sad. And I'm like, well, I want to get out in the community, help women and children especially. Okay, so maybe that's not quite right. He thinks what I'm doing is immoral. Okay, but so let me give another example. You got two friends who want to achieve something. One person wants to work out. One person wants to do something else. They both enjoy working out. They have an interest in working out and say reading, something scholastic, right? One person has an emphasis on this, the other person has an emphasis on this. There are often times when you may have different goals, but share similar interests, or at least that you value each other. You say, look, I will train you to lift weights because you want to lift weights and get fitter because I'm an expert in it, and I would like you to train me with this. So there could also be bartering and trade-offs, and you could do that with people who value each other. It's not rocket science, but it's shocking to me how many people out there that will not do it. Like for instance, I'm going out and I'm trying to raise money in the community to help raise awareness for the necessity of affordable housing for all Americans that want it. But guess what? It's not easy, and you should be suspicious of any politician who says it's our human right to have this, this, and this, and you should get it for free, and we need to get it from here. You got to be suspicious of that. And even if that person could do it, you got to ask yourself, is that moral or ethical in the manner that of how they want to get those funds? But that said, I go out in the community, and since I've been around for 60-some years, I haven't seen the ethical messiah who's going to have that happen. So basically, I don't want to wait around, because what I value is so important. I don't want to wait around for anybody, and I want us to accomplish it. I don't want some person who doesn't share my values, whether they're a politician or not, to help me with something that is, we're not on the same wavelength. So bottom line is I go out in the community, and you always only have the same 10 people who are doing a heroic amount of effort to the community. The rest of the people, not all of them, but too many people are like the former, that one guy, one of the brothers. And basically, they have this wish, I want this, but they basically don't want to put out the effort. So I basically ask other people, could you help me to make this happen so one day in a generation everybody could have housing, and we could do it without politicians and so forth. Crickets in the wilderness, that's all you hear. So you got people who do not value it. Most people, just like my former friend and some of my former co-workers, you can show a blueprint, your risk will be minimal, your rewards will be great. Here's a blueprint, you see the success, you can see that other people made the success. So you can lead a horse to water, and I'm going to say this to Jack Daniel, is that you can lead a horse to water, but there's something really creepy and unethical about trying to really give people something who don't really value it. There's something very creepy and unethical, and it's enabling, because in a way you're basically not allowing them to be in an environment that would allow them to grow, or even sometimes we need to be forced to grow. So don't know what to say. It's so sad that so many people don't have what they want. But again, there's no guarantees. Nobody promised us a rose garden. There's no free lunch. There's always risk. There's no guarantees. You got to do it. You got to do it, or the other choice is to simply stay home, watch TV, drink yourself to death. Or just be happy living at the level that you're living, because some people manage to do that. All right. I know I went on long. Take care.